I never thought betrayal could taste so bitter. Before I continue the story, kindly like this story, subscribe and tell us where you're listening from. You see, when my senior brother passed away, my world already felt like it had collapsed. He wasn't just my brother, he was my mentor, my shield, the man who guided me through life's storms. I was still grieving, still trying to make sense of a world without him, when his wife, the woman I thought was family, showed me just how cruel the world could be. It was only a few days after his burial. My heart was heavy, my eyes swollen from endless nights of tears. I dragged myself to the company, the very empire my brother had built with sweat and sleepless nights. For me, that building wasn't just bricks and glass, it was a part of him. Every corner whispered his presence, every office echoed his laughter, and I felt close to him whenever I walked those halls. But on that particular day, I noticed something strange. The moment I stepped through the doors, the staff avoided my gaze. Their heads bowed, conversations hushed, like they knew something I didn't. My chest tightened, but I kept walking, telling myself it was just the grief making me paranoid. Then I saw her. My late brother's wife, dressed sharply as though nothing had happened, her lips painted with arrogance, her eyes sharp like daggers. She stood there in the middle of the lobby, clutching a piece of paper. Before I could even greet her, she smirked and said, "You don't belong here anymore." I frowned, confused, my throat dry. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer and shoved the paper into my chest. I grabbed it, my hands trembling, and when I looked down, my heart froze. It was a sack letter, my own dismissal. "Yes," she said coldly, "you're out. Effective immediately." The words hit me like a blade. I looked around, desperate for someone to speak up, for someone to defend me. But the staff, the very people I worked alongside, lowered their heads and turned away. Not a single soul dared to move. I tried to steady my voice. This can't be right. My brother. Your brother is dead," she snapped, her voice rising. "And I'm in charge now. You have no place here. Get out before I have security drag you out like the nobody you are." Her words tore through me. A nobody. After everything I had done, after the years I had dedicated to this company, after standing by my brother through thick and thin, she had the audacity to call me a nobody. I could feel the sting of tears burning my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not in front of her. The staff still wouldn't look at me, but I could sense their unease. Some pitied me, others feared crossing her. When the guards finally approached, I didn't fight. My body was numb. I walked out, each step heavier than the last, my vision blurred with tears. Outside the building, I collapsed on a bench, buried my face in my hands, and let the tears flow freely. The pain of losing my brother was unbearable, but the humiliation, the public disgrace, was something I never thought I'd experience. That day, I walked away and never looked back. But let me tell you something, grief has a way of masking rage. In that moment, I was broken. But deep inside, a seed of vengeance was planted. A seed that would later grow into something unstoppable. For weeks, I stayed away. I couldn't bear the thought of facing anyone. People whispered in the streets, some offering empty sympathies, others feeding on gossip about how I had been thrown out like a stray dog. I hated it. I hated her. And I hated myself for being powerless. But here's the thing about pain, it sharpens you. And while she believed she had won, she had no idea that her victory was temporary. Very temporary. Because the day would come when I'd walk back into that company. Not as the broken, humiliated man she cast out, but as its rightful owner. And when that day came, she would regret ever crossing me. After that day, silence became my closest companion. I stopped visiting the company. I stopped answering questions from relatives who wanted to know what happened. The humiliation cut too deep, and every time I tried to explain, my throat tightened as if the words themselves were too heavy to speak. I stayed indoors for weeks, trapped between grief and rage. Nights were the hardest, I'd lie awake replaying the scene over and over in my mind, her smug face, the sack letter, the staff frozen in place like statues. The more I thought about it, the more I hated myself for walking out without a fight. But what could I have done? At that time, I truly believed she held all the power. She walked around with an air of ownership, and everyone bowed to her as if she were queen. Then something strange happened. One afternoon, while I was trying to clear some of my late brother's documents at home, a thought hit me like lightning: why hadn't his will been read? You see, my brother was a meticulous man. He planned everything down to the smallest detail. There was no way he would leave this world without putting his affairs in order. I remembered him mentioning his lawyer more than once, but in my grief, I hadn't paid much attention. The question haunted me for days until I finally picked up my phone and dialed the lawyer's number. My heart pounded as the call connected. Hello. His voice was calm, but I could sense something beneath it. Sir, I said, my voice shaky, I need to ask you something. Did he leave a will? There was silence on the other end. Not the silence of bad reception, no, this was heavy, deliberate silence. Then he sighed deeply, a sound that sent chills down my spine. Why do you ask now? He finally said. Because, I swallowed hard. Because I was thrown out of the company. She said I had no place there. And everyone believed her. I need to know if my brother left anything behind for me. Another pause. Then, in a low voice, he said words that changed everything. Your late brother left you the company. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My ears rang as though the world itself had gone mute. What did you just say? The company, he repeated. It was in his will. He left it entirely in your name. His wife owns nothing from it. I froze, my mind racing, my heart thundering in my chest. All this time, all this pain, all this humiliation, and the truth was that I had been the rightful owner from the very beginning. I clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Then why hasn't it been read? Why didn't you say anything? His voice faltered. She made it difficult. She insisted it wasn't necessary. But legally, the will stands. I have the original copy in my office. My hands trembled, but this time it wasn't weakness, it was fury. She had known. Somehow, she must have known. And she deliberately hid it, lied to everyone, and tossed me out like I was nothing. I took a deep breath, fighting to steady my voice. I want a duplicate. Tomorrow morning. Yes, of course, he replied quickly. I'll prepare it. When I hung up, I sat there in silence, my mind replaying everything, the humiliation, the whispers, the looks of pity in people's eyes. And now, the truth, I wasn't powerless. I wasn't a nobody. The empire my brother built was mine all along. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced my room, consumed with thoughts of revenge. I imagined walking back into that building, imagined her face when she saw me holding the document that proved she had nothing. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. This was about justice. She had stolen my dignity, trampled my name, and made me bleed in front of the entire city. Now, I would return the favor. And so, as dawn crept into the sky, I made my decision. The next morning, I would not walk with my head bowed. No. I would walk into that office with the strength of my brother's legacy behind me. I could already see it, the staff frozen in shock, her voice trembling with desperation, and me, standing tall, documents in hand, reclaiming everything she tried to steal. The silence of my suffering was about to end. Because the next day, the city would hear my voice loud and clear. Morning couldn't come fast enough. I barely touched my breakfast. My hands shook not from fear, but from anticipation. For months, I had carried humiliation like a curse, but today, I was going to hold power in my hands. I arrived at the lawyer's office just as the sun climbed the horizon. The building looked ordinary, but to me, it was a fortress hiding the truth I had been denied. I stepped inside, and the receptionist gave me a polite nod, her eyes betraying the curiosity she dared not voice. The lawyer greeted me with a firm handshake. He was a serious man, gray at the temples, with eyes that always seemed to measure you carefully before he spoke. He gestured for me to sit, then opened a drawer in his desk. My breath caught when he placed the brown envelope before me. "This," he said, sliding it toward me, "is the duplicate copy of your late brother's will. You may keep it. But understand this, with it, you hold not only power but also responsibility." My fingers trembled as I reached for it. The paper felt heavier than it should have, like it carried the weight of justice itself. I unfolded it slowly, eyes scanning each line, each word etched with finality. And then I saw it. Clear as daylight. My brother's signature, the seal of the law, and the words that silenced every doubt in me: "The company is to be left solely to my younger brother." My chest tightened, and tears welled in my eyes, but this time they weren't tears of grief. They were tears of vindication. For months, I had walked in shame, spat on by whispers and mocked by silence. Yet all along, I was the rightful heir. I looked up at the lawyer. He nodded gravely. "It belongs to you. She has no legal claim." For a moment, I said nothing. My mind spun with images, her triumphant smirk as she pushed me out, the staff staring as if I were an intruder, the weight of humiliation that nearly crushed me. But now I saw her differently. She wasn't powerful. She was a parasite feeding on a throne that was never hers. And soon, the entire world would know it. I folded the document carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. "Thank you," I said, my voice steady, though a storm brewed inside me. "You've given me back more than paper. You've given me back my life." As I stepped out of that office, the city felt different. The street seemed brighter, the air lighter, and for the first time in months, I walked with my head high. But deep inside, my heart burned with a fire I had never felt before. I wasn't the same man she humiliated. No, that man had died the day I walked out of the company in tears. In his place stood someone sharper, stronger, someone ready to strike. That night, I sat by my brother's photograph. I studied his smile, the kindness in his eyes, and whispered, "I will not let her tarnish your legacy." She thought she could bury me, but she only planted me. "Tomorrow, brother, tomorrow, I rise." The next morning, I dressed carefully. A black suit, polished shoes, and a tie my brother had gifted me years ago. I wanted her to see me not as a broken sibling, but as the rightful master of what she had tried to steal. I stood at the foot of the company building, the same steps I had stumbled down months ago in disgrace. Staff moved in and out, busy with their duties, but heads turned as I approached. Whispers followed me, eyes widened, and I could almost hear their thoughts: "He's back." Each step I took up those stairs was heavy with purpose. With every stride, I shed the last remnants of shame and donned the armor of authority. By the time I reached the glass doors, I wasn't just walking into a building, I was walking into destiny. The guards stiffened when they saw me. Last time, they had marched me out like a criminal. But today, I carried my weapon, the envelope clutched firmly in my hand. I pushed the doors open. The echo of my footsteps filled the lobby. Every head turned. The silence was deafening. And then, there she was. My late brother's wife. The thief who paraded as a queen. She stood near the front desk, surrounded by staff who hung on her every word. When her eyes met mine, I saw it, the flicker of fear. I smiled, though it wasn't warm. It was sharp, cold, and filled with the promise of reckoning. I wasn't here to beg. I wasn't here to cry. I was here to take back what was mine. And as I tightened my grip on the envelope, one thought burned in my mind. Her reign ended today. The moment I stepped into that lobby, the air shifted. Whispers rippled through the staff like a storm breaking out of nowhere. I could see their faces: shock, confusion, disbelief. Some of them even looked guilty, as if remembering the day they had watched me being dragged out like trash. And there she was. My late brother's wife, standing tall in the middle of it all, draped in expensive clothes she had bought with money that was never hers. She carried herself like royalty, but the moment her eyes locked with mine, her composure cracked. I saw it, that split second of fear. I didn't rush. No. I took my time. My footsteps echoed on the marble floor, each one deliberate, each one striking deeper into her false throne. When I finally stopped in front of her, I could see the mask she tried to put back on. "What are you doing here?" she spat, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't I make it clear that you're not welcome in this company?" The staff froze, their eyes bouncing between us like they were watching a duel. I smiled, not out of warmth, but out of cold satisfaction. "You should choose your words carefully," I said, my voice steady, sharp. "Because this isn't your company." Her face darkened. "Excuse me." I reached into my jacket and pulled out the brown envelope. Slowly, deliberately, I opened it and held up the document for everyone to see. The air grew heavy. Gasps spread across the lobby. "This," I said, my voice ringing clear, "is my late brother's will. And it states, in black and white, that this company was left to me. Not you. Not anyone else. Me." She blinked rapidly, her lips trembling. For a moment, she looked around, searching for someone to defend her, but no one moved. The staff who once bowed to her now kept their distance, their eyes fixed on the document in my hand. "You're lying," she screamed, her voice shrill with desperation. "That's fake. He would never." "Fake." I cut her off, stepping closer. "Go ahead, call the lawyer. Ask him yourself. The truth is, you've been parading around here like an empress when you own nothing. Not a single brick of this company belongs to you." The lobby was silent except for the pounding of my words. She opened her mouth to argue again, but I dropped the final blow. "From today onwards, you are nothing more than an intruder in my company." The crowd gasped again, some whispering, some simply staring in awe. I could feel the shift, the way authority drained from her and settled on me. She tried to regain control, raising her voice again. "You can't do this. I've been running this place since he died. Everyone here knows me, not you. You think they'll follow you?" I let her words hang for a moment, then turned slowly to the staff. Their eyes met mine, searching, waiting. I raised the document higher. "Look at this. This isn't about me or her. This is about the man who built this empire, my brother. His last wish, his final word, was that this company be left in my care. If any of you respect his legacy, then you know who the rightful heir is." The silence broke with a murmur. Heads nodded. Eyes softened. One by one, the staff shifted their gaze away from her and onto me. In that instant, I knew, I had won them. She must have felt it too, because her tone changed. The arrogance drained out of her, replaced by a pathetic kind of pleading. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "Please, please, you can't do this to me. I have nowhere else to go." The same woman who once sneered at me, who had dragged me out in tears, now begged at my feet in front of the very people who once watched me fall. I leaned in closer so only she could hear me, though my eyes stayed locked on hers. "Do you remember the day you called me a nobody? The day you told me to get out before the guards dragged me out? Today, I return those words to you." Her face paled, her knees almost buckling. "Get out." I straightened, my voice louder now, echoing across the lobby. "If you're not gone in 5 minutes, I'll call the guards to drag you out." The same guards who once escorted me stood at attention, waiting for my signal. The irony was delicious. She dropped to her knees, her palms pressed together as tears streaked her face. "Please. I'm begging you, don't humiliate me like this. We're family." "Family?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You lost that right the moment you chose betrayal over blood. You wanted me disgraced. Now it's your turn." I turned to the guards. "Show her the door." The lobby erupted in murmurs as the guards stepped forward. She tried to resist, screaming, clawing at the floor, but they lifted her arms and dragged her toward the exit. The sight was a mirror of my own humiliation months ago, only this time, the roles had reversed. And I didn't stop there. As she stumbled out into the street, I gave one final command to the staff watching. Make sure every newspaper, every radio station, and every online page in this city knows the truth. She lied. She cheated. She stole what was never hers. Let the world see her for what she is. There was no going back now. That day, her reign ended, and mine began. The day she was dragged out of my company was only the beginning. Humiliation, you see, is a seed. When planted in front of an audience, it grows into a story the whole city wants to tell. And I made sure her downfall became the loudest story anyone had ever heard. I didn't just throw her out, I shattered her throne. The very next morning, newspapers carried the headline, "Widow Exposed, Company Rightfully Belongs to Late Owner's Brother." Radio stations buzzed with it. Social media lit up like wildfire. Everywhere she went, people whispered. Her face, once painted with pride, now carried the mark of disgrace. And the staff? They didn't waste time switching allegiance. Some apologized privately for staying silent the day she humiliated me. I didn't blame them, fear makes cowards of many. But now, with the truth exposed, they looked at me with respect. I was no longer the outcast. I was the heir. But for her, life turned into ashes. Everywhere she walked, eyes followed. Neighbors whispered behind curtains. Friends who once dined with her now avoided her calls. Doors that once opened wide slammed shut in her face. She had climbed high on borrowed power, and when the foundation was ripped away, she fell hard, so hard that the whole city felt the tremor. And I made sure the fall was merciless. I cut her off completely. The company no longer funded her lavish lifestyle. The cars, the credit, the luxury, all stripped away in a single day. She was left scrambling, desperate to hold on to the image she once paraded. But image means nothing when the truth burns brighter. I remember the day I saw her again, weeks after the incident. She was standing outside a cafe, her clothes no longer designer, her hair no longer polished. She looked smaller, weaker, a shadow of the woman who once sneered at me. When her eyes met mine, she froze. And then she looked away, ashamed, as if the ground itself could swallow her whole. And that was when I realized. Revenge wasn't just about taking back what was mine. It was about making her feel every ounce of pain she had inflicted on me. So I didn't stop at silence. I let her humiliation echo. I made sure the story of her betrayal was published again and again. Interviews, business magazines, talk shows, I accepted every opportunity to speak about the company, about my brother's legacy, about how his will had been hidden from me. And each time, her name came up. Each time, her deceit was dragged into the light. Her image rotted. The woman who once boasted of wealth and power was now nothing more than a scandal, a warning whispered in business circles, never cross blood. Never betray family. People asked me if I felt pity. Did I? Maybe once, long ago, when I thought of her as family. But the day she dragged me out, called me a nobody, and watched me bleed in front of the world, she killed whatever mercy I might have had. So no, I didn't pity her. I let her drown in the storm she created. But here's the truth, revenge isn't just about destroying someone else. It's about rebuilding yourself in the process. The more her image crumbled, the stronger I became. The company flourished under my leadership. Clients who had doubted us returned with confidence. Staff who had been divided now stood united under one vision, to honor my brother's legacy. And every time I walked those halls, I felt his presence, stronger than ever. He hadn't just left me a company, he left me a chance to rise. As for her, her life became a mirror of the pain she inflicted. The city she once ruled with arrogance now spat her name like poison. Invitations stopped. Respect vanished. And the people who once cheered her on now crossed the street to avoid her. I didn't need to raise a hand against her. The truth itself was the blade that cut her down. And in the end, when people spoke of her, they didn't call her a widow. They didn't call her a leader. They called her what she truly was. A thief who lost everything. Me. I stood tall, not as a victim, not as a nobody, but as the rightful heir, the man who rose from humiliation to power. And that, my friends, is the story of how I turned pain into power, grief into fire, and betrayal into the sweetest revenge. And that, my friends, is how I turned humiliation into triumph, and made the woman who once called me a nobody beg for mercy in front of the entire city. But tell me, what would you have done in my shoes? Would you have shown her mercy, or would you have dragged her down the same way she tried to drag me? I want to hear your thoughts, drop them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe so you never miss the next thrilling chapter, and share this video with someone who loves suspense as much as you do. Until next time, remember, betrayal can break you, but it can also make you unstoppable.